I've always been fascinated by the stories people share online about their most terrifying encounters. You know the ones I'm talking about, those late night confessions that make you question everything you thought you knew about safety and trust. Tonight, I'm sharing 4 absolutely bone-chilling true stories about highway hitchhiking that will make you think twice before ever picking up a stranger again. These aren't your typical urban legends or creepypasta tales. These are real experiences from real people who lived through some genuinely horrifying situations. I've spent weeks verifying these accounts and reaching out to the original storytellers to make sure every detail is as accurate as possible. What you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Before we dive in, I need to set something straight. I'm not here to judge anyone's decisions or tell you what you should or shouldn't do. These stories happen to regular people who made split-second choices that changed their lives forever. Some of them were drivers who thought they were doing a good deed. Others were hitchhikers who just needed to get somewhere. All of them learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is trust a complete stranger. The first story takes place on a desolate stretch of highway in the Pacific Northwest. It was submitted by someone who goes by Marcus online. He's in his early 30s now, but this happened when he was 19 and driving cross-country for the first time. Marcus had been on the road for almost 6 hours when he spotted a woman standing on the shoulder of the highway, holding her thumb out. Now Marcus had grown up in a small town where helping strangers wasn't just normal, it was expected. His parents had always taught him to lend a hand when someone was in trouble. So when he saw this woman clearly stranded in the middle of nowhere, his first instinct was to pull over. The nearest town was at least 40 miles in either direction, and it was getting dark fast. As Marcus slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder, he got his first good look at the woman. She appeared to be in her 20s with long dark hair and was wearing what looked like a waitress uniform. Nothing seemed off about her at first glance. She walked up to his passenger side window with a grateful smile and asked if he was heading toward the next town. Marcus told her he was and unlocked his doors. The woman climbed into the passenger seat and immediately thanked him for stopping. She explained that her car had broken down about 5 miles back and her phone had no signal. She said she worked at a diner in town and really needed to get back for her shift the next morning. Everything about her story seemed perfectly reasonable. Marcus felt good about helping someone in need. For the first 15 minutes of the drive, everything was completely normal. They made small talk about the weather and the long stretches of empty road. The woman seemed friendly enough, and Marcus started to relax. That's when things began to get weird. The woman suddenly became very quiet and started staring at Marcus intensely. When he glanced over at her, she would quickly look away and pretend to be watching the road ahead. At first, he thought maybe she was just tired or nervous about being in a car with a stranger. But her behaviour kept getting stranger. She started asking very personal questions about where he was going and who might be expecting him. She wanted to know if he had family in the area and whether anyone knew his exact travel route. Marcus tried to keep his answers vague because something in her tone was making him uncomfortable. The friendly waitress from before had completely disappeared. Then she did something that made Marcus's blood run cold. She reached into her purse and pulled out what looked like a small knife. She didn't threaten him with it or even acknowledge that she was holding it. She just sat there turning it over in her hands while continuing to ask him personal questions about his life and his family. Marcus's heart started pounding as he watched her fidget with the blade in his peripheral vision. He tried to keep his voice steady and asked if everything was okay. She looked at him with this strange smile and said she was just making sure she could protect herself if needed. The way she said it sent chills down his spine because it felt more like a threat than an explanation. He started thinking about his options. They were still miles from anywhere, and the sun had completely set by now. The highway was pitch black except for his headlights cutting through the darkness. Marcus realized he was trapped in a metal box going 60 miles per hour with someone who was clearly not what she seemed. The woman started talking about how isolated this stretch of road was and how nobody would find someone out here for days if something happened to them. She said it almost casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Marcus's hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. Every instinct he had was screaming at him to get away from this person. That's when she made her move. She leaned closer to him and pressed the tip of the knife against his ribs. Not hard enough to cut through his shirt, but enough that he could feel the point through the fabric. She told him in this eerily calm voice that he was going to take the next exit and drive to a specific location she would direct him to. She said if he tried anything stupid, she would make sure he regretted it. Marcus knew he was in serious trouble. This wasn't some random breakdown situation. This woman had been waiting on that highway specifically to find someone like him, someone traveling alone who would stop to help. He started thinking about all the missing persons cases he'd heard about on the news and wondered how many of them had started exactly like this. The next exit was coming up fast and Marcus had to make a decision. He could follow her instructions and hope she would eventually let him go, or he could take a massive risk and try to get away while he still had some control over the situation. The knife was still pressed against his side, and he could feel her watching his every move. What Marcus did next probably saved his life, but it also taught him something about human nature that he wishes he'd never learned. Some people spend their entire lives looking for opportunities to hurt others. They study normal social behaviours and use them as weapons. The woman in his passenger seat had turned his own desire to help someone into a trap. Our second story comes from the other side of the equation. This one was shared by a woman named Sarah who was hitchhiking her way across the Midwest in the late 90s. She was 22 years old and had decided to travel the country before starting graduate school. Sarah thought she was being smart about it by only accepting rides during daylight hours and trusting her instincts about potential drivers. She'd been on the road for 3 days when she found herself stranded outside a small farming town in Nebraska. Her ride had dropped her off at a truck stop, and she was looking for someone heading further west. The sun was starting to get low, and she was getting worried about being stuck there overnight when a pickup truck pulled up beside her. These 4 stories represent just a tiny fraction of the terrifying encounters that happen on our highways every single day. Marcus, Sarah, and the others who shared their experiences with me were lucky enough to escape with their lives, but not everyone does. The sad truth is that predators have turned something as simple as helping a stranger into a hunting ground. I know some of you might be thinking these are isolated incidents, or that nothing like this would ever happen to you, but that's exactly what every single person in these stories thought before they found themselves face to face with genuine evil. The woman Marcus picked up had clearly done this before. The man who approached Sarah knew exactly how to manipulate someone's trust. These weren't random acts of violence. They were calculated and deliberate. What haunts me most about these accounts isn't just the immediate danger these people faced, it's how these experiences changed them forever. Marcus told me he hasn't picked up a hitchhiker in over a decade. Sarah said she can barely drive alone at night without constantly checking her mirrors. These encounters didn't just threaten their lives, they stole their ability to see the world as a safe place. The next time you see someone on the side of the road with their thumb out, or someone approaches your car asking for help, remember these stories. Trust that feeling in your gut when something doesn't seem right. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is ignore your own instincts in favor of being polite or helpful. Your safety is worth more than a stranger's convenience, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting yourself. Stay safe out there, and remember that sometimes the person who needs help the most is you.